Thank you for coming, everybody. I want to start with the little video clip that I made in 2009 or something. The story is called The Dreamer. It was part of my first book called Moonward. And so we'll just start with the video. It's long before I started thinking about AI and stuff. But I think I view AI and most of the topics through this sort of a lens. So I thought it's a nice way to start it off. So there. Okay, so we come to Dream Machine. It's a book I worked with a French AI physicist. He's an AI expert, and he runs a pretty prominent AI company in France called Lighton. I happened to bump into him. It's a little story for me because I was at a residency in Angoulême in France, a very prestigious residency for comic art people. They have a huge comic art festival over there, and I went with all these dreams of setting my comics on track sort of thing. It's a beautiful place, a lot of struggling artists sitting everywhere in cafes and drawing lines and trying to make ends meet sort of thing. So basically it had nothing for me over there. So I went around looking in different places, and Lyon led to Paris, and there I met this guy, Laurent. So he said he's into AI. I said I'm into comics. Usually the conversation stops there, but the French are a little more into comics, so they ask a little more. And then I was also thinking of, okay, I should ask something about AI. And I'm trying to poke holes in this idea of, or the fear of AI that was quite prevalent at the time, and even now maybe. So I just wanted to understand a little more. So I asked him about resources it takes, the environmental impacts, things like that. And so Laurent also teaches AI at a university in Saclay. So he went into maybe his standard description of it. He said we might even run out of resources trying to reach this place in AI. And in my head that just worked out as a comic. We're the human race, we're running past climate change and all these things, we've screwed up all around, and we're going to get this AI thing which we don't even know what it can give us or what the problems are, but we are willing to run for that despite this risk of like running out of resources. He said we are relying on better batteries and better technology to come along the way to help us reach there, and that there, I realized later, is not even the AGI or that level of intelligence that we see in Hollywood movies and stuff. It's the same LLM thing where it's a statistical model and you're training the AI to basically predict the next word sort of thing. That's the intelligence we have now, and that was kind of like a jarring thing for me to hear from an AI scientist, because in my head it was something else. Even in the Angoulême place, like all these artists were like worried about how AI is going to come and take their non-existent jobs. But I don't think like AI works like that. After studying studying AI for like some time, it seems like it's good at like churning out stuff faster and cheaper. And if you wanted comics faster, then that won't be the case in Angoulême. So, Dream Machine. Well, I wrote and drew the thing. Laura gave all the technical stuff. So it worked out. The initial pitch was more like an explainer of AI. And then we sort of, with the publisher's support, we sort of moved away more into the story. But it does have a lot of explanation, a lot of like an education kind of thing. Because I'm kind of sick with the fantasy stories of dragons and like the disconnected fantasies that happen. I like it when it's an allegory or there's something that leads to a real world from there, because we have enough of distractions as it is. I don't want to spend a lot of time making another distraction. So this seemed essential that we explain AI. We talk about what is possible, what is not possible, and to do that we go to the nitty-gritties of it, which Laura knows very well. So I used all that to try and paint a picture of, well, as much of like a projection as I could do, with the similar ideas of control and surveillance and everything that I'm obsessed with otherwise also. So that's the Dream Machine cover. The Indian cover is so much better than the French cover. The French cover I'll show you at the end. You will agree with me. So we go into the book. This is how we start. I'm going to show you 3 pages in order, so you just get a flow, and then after that it's some random pages, so you just understand that they're random pages. It's to set the stage. My fascination with AI, with artificial intelligence technology, started very early. There was nothing magical in my fantasy world. Everything was made of parts, science, and research. Everything was possible with technology back when I dived into a life of science. So Laurent is also one of those, I realized as we kept on talking. He had this idealistic, like, image of what technology will come and do when he was in college and stuff. So that's the dream that he and his friends followed, much like the beginning of the internet days. It all starts with a dream. And then from there, like, to be the CEO of a company, he has to play the role and do the things that have to be done. So that became a very interesting point for me to look at the whole book and make it more of a human story. So I went and lived with him for a few days, and I've drawn his house and all that. Wife is not his, like I've invented the character. But it just so happened that in my script I wrote it as Anna, and then he was really surprised. He's like, did you meet her? I was like, no, her name is Anne. I was like, oh, okay. This is, the beginning is at a high because Hugo Klein, the character who we're talking about, based on Laura, of course, he's returning from a meeting and he's pretty much on cloud 9 sort of thing. So it's been a good meeting, we take from that, and that will be explained later. But right now he's in this fantasy thing of AI and how his dream is working out. Basically, a lot of investment coming, and there's a hint that his company might get taken over by this really large corporation, which is a dream for him, and they want to buy a bigger flat and things like that. So it needed the time and the work of many brilliant minds. We're talking about AI in general, but today I get the same feeling I had 30 years ago. Anything is possible. So he's building this thing, and then this is the transition sort of thing where the dream becomes real. So these are places where, when I stayed with him, I walked with him to his office and the places where he generally walks to think and stuff like that. So this garden happens there. I thought it's a nice place for Super Hugo, the imagined superhero guy, to come down to regular Hugo. So you see him landing, and then that's the park area. The scene is looking good for anyone doing business in LLM and AI now. So it's springtime in AI land. So all the it's time to catch the sun and grow. My firm Cly is all set to break new ground today. Now I'm breaking out a sequence. Now he's had an argument with his wife. She's learned a lot of stuff about AI and she's questioning things. So, but he's also a teacher, so he's on his way to teach, and he has to straddle these worlds. And he has questions in all these things. Immortality games, what a time we live in, because immortality is the next thing that is going to be a carrot dangled in front of you. Ida is a AI assistant little robot thing he has. So it's like a smartphone assistant sort of thing. So Ida is in charge of all these things, make a file on really, all that stuff. What I wanted to come to is the middle and the bottom section of this page. My students must deal with so much information. It's exciting to be on the cusp of a new age, but I'm not entirely sure how to equip them for tomorrow. The systems have become so massive that only the biggest corporations can afford them today. That means universities, research institutes, and even most governments cannot afford these machines. That changes the direction of progress. This is something that came from Laurent and many of his academic friends who are wondering why this technology is taking the trajectory it's taking right now. So this answer came out to me as quite like standout. Earlier when we do research, there are all levels of research happening. There are independent people doing research, there are colleges like small labs, whatever. But right now the LLM machines have become so big that not many people can afford it, not many countries can also afford it. So it's in the hands of a few large corporations. Maybe China has something like hidden and US has something with the corporation, but mostly you have to go to these kind of monopolies to like get the work ahead. So I figure when you're looking at only profit with the technology or anything new like that, it falls in the domain of what I've generally been addressing. I studied economics and commerce and I did advertising. So I think the rules there are kind of the same, except like we use technology here as a product. So there are a lot of tech people who are very passionate about AI, and I understand the way they see technology and growth and stuff, but I think it's impossible to see technology separated from the commercial world the way it's going right now. So that leads into more of the story. This is just cool page, like, you know, nice art, everybody appreciates, thank you. Now we're going to this New Rips conference in Vancouver, which did not happen in Vancouver in the year we're talking about, but that was the place that Laurent had gone to earlier, so I thought base it there so we know something. In there we come across the old academic friends he has, and one of his friends who's moved like fully into the corporate world. So that guy has some secrets about how this large company is like sort of figuring some large plan which involves many countries and a lot of technology. So they have bought some language model from Cly, which is Hugo's company, and they want to use it as part of a game. Now, this is easy for a company that's handling just that, to sell the technology and not worry about what's going to happen with the technology after you sold it. But there are many friends who come and like tell me you're dealing with this company called Real. So Real is this big company, and when I say like AI and the real world, I mean that Real also. So this company is going to use it for something we don't know what it is, so maybe you should wait a bit and see what they're trying. There's a lot of talk about like them taking over many companies. You know, they're developing some software that can run whole companies, things like that come out. This is Hugo has a friend from India called Ayo. So, you know, while I'm drawing like this thing, I'm dying to like draw something more familiar. I spent some time in France, but then you realize how little you notice when you sit down to draw, because there are lampposts, there are like pavements, there are all kinds of things like that, which doesn't come to you. You think of like I think of like what I see here mostly, and I also noticed that Indians express a lot more. Like, we make like funny faces and stuff. Like, because the story is set in like France, like everybody's like making serious faces. So I wanted to like make a little bit of like breakout in that. So this character, artist guy from India goes there, and he's an old friend. So this is something that a friend of mine, Shrikar, told me while I was discussing technology generally with him. His friend had an interesting point on AI. He wants robots that can clean sewers because such jobs are always done by people of the lowest caste. The caste usually dictates the jobs one can do, so they are linked to it as long as the job exists. He says, if the job is simply not there, they will be freed of this caste burden. That's a unique point, says the scientist. The AI will have ample biases like us. Sex, caste, race, religion. It will inherit the biases from the information it is fed. So if a firm does not hire lower caste people, the AI will understand that as a rule of recruitment, it will take time to address these issues. So then the Indian artist guy says, that's assuming they want to fix it. We love our biases and we win elections on that, so no thank you. The AI world is in an inhuman rush too. It does not think of ethics, society, or the environment. So we try to like open it up and try to see what all it connects to and how it's going to affect different parts of the world. Because when you look at it, it seems like a technology like dreamed up in a much more developed world, which we are trying to like fit into another much more grayer world, which is a developing side of the story. And there are many things that don't match. You need to have like a black and white system for this thing to work. So all the people in the gray, like how when Aadhaar came out, what happened, there are many junctures along the way where such things can happen. Now, to make things like more exciting and not to reveal too much more about the book, there's a whistleblower who comes and she's very reliable. See, look at her. You just look at her and she's very reliable. And she's going to like give him a few clues about like what the big company could be doing. And because since she seems so reliable, I hope the reader takes it as reliable too. This is in the office of Clay. We're talking about like different things. The only thing over here is the whole chapter has this sort of like circular thing. This the composition of every page is like that. So it's like there's an eye watching you, and the implication is that even though they are talking about this in their office, in their little office, they are discussing things of about how to take this deal from the big company. So the big company has like big stakes, and they're sort of watching out. There's always this, really successful corporate guy who knows exactly how life is to be run and how the world is running. So I've also been subject to this kind of thing where they tell you what to do. This is Jacques Legrand. Jacques Legrand is the guy like handling the bigger company. So anyway, when I'm in a stressful situation, I try not to overthink. In our business, we are doers because there is not enough time to think or wait for proof. It's the opportunity that we must seize. Our competitors will pounce on it if we don't. And now, with ChatGPT making the news worldwide, this is the perfect opportunity. I say you must act like the businessman now, and not a scientist. It will be good for Clay and Anna. Anna's the wife. So he's like, oh, she's so great, like you guys are so great and all together. She needs a better like future, bigger flat and all that. He's very like patronizing that way and like based on some people I know. So I'll put it like that. I think Legrand like works for that thing, and this is just Hugo taking a walk and trying to process everything in his head, all the dreams that he had, things like that. This is to show that there is a family scene happening also. He has personal issues and sort of like planning with his wife what they can actually use AI for and how to be careful about it in the future. Now, it's a very interesting thing. Like the question was like, there's a lot of thing about AI and art. So at the point, it seemed like a smart thing to do to train an AI model with my drawings from the book. So we fed in like about 600 drawings, and Laurent took on this arduous task of captioning and cutting my pages into like every image, and you have to like describe each image and feed it into this thing because it's so dumb, it doesn't know anything. And you have to say that, okay, this is Hugo smiling, this is Hugo like, pissed off, things like that. So we did that just for the last 5 pages. I just wanted to make a play of it and show that, okay, we got 5 pages made with AI. These are the limitations. I put the prompts there for every image, what we prompted. The text is also, you can see the prompt, and the AI has been fed the story till now. So basically, I've concluded the story. I would not give any like creative control to this thing because it's like quite random. So I want to control that. So I've given the full thing, and I've asked a few questions about certain futures that can turn up from where we stop the story. So this technology that he sells to the big company becomes a big success, and the whole world is after that, and the world changes because the game is a big success. Everyone's wearing these lenses, things like all the time, and living in the game. That was one reality. That's what you see here. So you can see like down here, like, prompt old woman like playing the VR game until she dies. So that's the kind of prompt we give, and we get that. The AI is all about pleasing you. So if you say that, I want to know like how AI can like really kill you or like make your life hell and all, and then it really works with you because it wants to please you. So it'll tell you many things that, AI is going to make everything terrible for you. That kind of stuff it takes on. And even lies, it doesn't care about lying to you just to please you. And that is going very much with our social media reality bubble that we live in. We only see what we like. All the stuff that we don't like is like kept away. So we are encouraged to make this little bubble. And I think like when we get more AI playing in the field, you will have AI handling your social media, and it'll curate much better, like to show you only what you like and nothing that you don't like. So you'll really believe that you're completely in a thing. And you might have your social media AI posting stuff and liking stuff, which is posted by your friends' social media AI. So it becomes an AI to AI world, I think, in that kind of sense. So we played with like 5 scenarios in the end. The last one was like a zombie apocalypse. After this whole thing happens, there's a zombie apocalypse that also AI made, and then we had to say like make it more gory, and then it made it more gory also. So this was the exercise at the end. I think it just like wraps up the whole thing about AI and art also. I also had to like learn a little bit about how it's done before I criticize it or like, piss on it. So yeah, this is about it. This is a poster from really the big company. May take your job, your identity, and your soul, but hey, it's fun. Okay. This is the entire cover spread. It's really nice. Now, interestingly, if you see the BIC poster that's there, it's been created with AI. There's a little tab on top that says made with AI. It fooled me also, because I didn't see that on the background. Like now when I sat down and I looked at the background that will come soon, after I do Alt Tab, then I saw that the drawing is not mine. It just looks like mine. And I got fooled myself just now. I just realized it when I sat there. So you'll see the difference, because in this skyline, you can pretty much like identify the tall buildings, the Statue of Liberty, and next to the Statue of Liberty, I think it's the Statue of Unity. This is the French cover that I talked about. Okay, I think I'm done with that.
Could we maybe, and Francis, actually, I'll start with you because we've heard from Apupen. As somebody who works with AI, who teaches AI, etc., how do you find yourself grappling with these conversations about the ethics of AI, especially with regards to art, but just more generally as well?
Thank you, Padmini. Can you hear me correctly? And thank you first to Apu, because Apu did a very incredible job. I mean, his book, and he wrote it, he drawn it with his French colleague, is extraordinary because it challenges every current AI question. So it is incredible to do it in a single book. And the comic way of it is a very interesting way to achieve popularization, which is needed for AI. AI need discussion around it, more inclusion. So thanks to comics, because it appears comics, it's like we were a child, so we can access it. We are surrounded by AI, but with comic we could understand it, and it's incredible because there is everything in your book. It's when you have it in your hands, you cannot leave it. I had it and I say, okay, I will read it within 1 week, and absolutely no way. I had to read it very in a small time of lapse of time, because it was very interesting, many characters and there. So first, I wanted to thank you. That's the reason why I accepted to discuss it with you, because it's a very good book, and congratulations on that.
Book will be available outside, okay?
There is a second reason, but it's maybe a secret one. We will discuss maybe at the end for what I accepted to be there. Maybe we'll discuss it at the end. But there is another one, is that like an average researcher, an average people, and even French one, I'm a social animal, and I like that impression of meeting Apu. We met 2 or 3 minutes away. The same for Padmini, and we are already exchanging with you. And this is a human eight consideration about who we are. We are able to discuss. Also, it's not that reflection is not new. And Socrates had this reflection first, saying, with meiotic, even if we discuss, we can discover more than we had at the beginning. And this is exactly where the original AI project stands. It's what if we could introduce some artificial something within that human socialization. That's the AI original project. And if I talk a bit about it, it's because there is something new in the later AI project, but it's very important for me to situate that. So the original project is very simple. What if we could build, we don't know how, an artifact that could interact with humans? And the criterion is very simple. If there is a natural interaction in between humans, and if that artificial things is interacting, and if humans are interacting with it, let's say, it will be something very interesting. So it's what I call human-eyed development. And to achieve that, there is something very interesting. To achieve that is, the interesting thing is that we can discuss without even knowing more than that phenomenon. We don't know how we are made, our cognition. I don't know anything about why can I think? This is a mystery. And Apu, I was listening to him. How is he thinking? I don't know. I cannot. And I'm sure if I open his head, I will not discover the reason why. So it's very simple. Very simple. We don't know how we are, but we can discuss. So for the artifact, it's the same. Of course, we shall need to build that artifact, but the verification of the interest of it is, again, will it be able to discuss? And to, of course, very early, because that project is, by the way, an old one. It appeared just after the Second World War, for concrete reasons, because it was very interesting, and also it could raise the question of interpretation. And interpretation was at the moment, so it's 70 years ago, I don't want to count, but please check for me. It's rather old, but interpretation was also a meaning of intelligence. You can understand intelligence as Central Intelligence Agency. Intelligence, it was the Cold War, the beginning of the Cold War. So let's say to earn the Cold War, needed to better understand that the phenomenon of interpretation on large scale, because the Cold War was a war of intelligence interpretation. So just to reach that project, building an artifact able to communicate with humans. We had some interesting results. Is computer science. Computer science appeared as an effect of this AI research by involving logic, by involving a certain number of things that have been discovered within that project, which is computer science. We could imagine how to build up that kind of artifact. But the main problem remains on that communication effect that was targeting. And to reach that, you will see it's very simple. To reach that, again, human aid. What is a human? Human, okay, we are able to communicate. But we also maintain what is our reality. Our reality is that one. We communicate, but we maintain at a certain level of abstraction some representations, more or less resilient, culture, more or less extended. It could be quite local, it can be more global. So it's culture, it's theory. If you think about science, science needs, of course, we experiment, you see, but you need theories. And of course, you know that theories can be, in a way, they abstract, they summarize, they are very useful to make a kind of space in between our communication reality and our models, representation, and things like that. If you consider everything, humans have got those representations. Coming to, for example, text and language. Language, written, spoken, okay, we speak. I'm speaking too much, maybe, sorry. But I've also, and in India particularly, you've got many languages, but we are supported by something very interesting. I wanted to learn Kannada recently, and as an old man, I don't want to learn some words of Kannada. I want to go to the root of Kannada. So what was I looking for? Can you imagine? To learn Kannada. I was looking for, please, I want a grammar. I want a Kannada grammar, because if I've got a good grammar, I could better achieve the understanding of Kannada. I need it. Because when you are old, when you want to learn another language, you need comparison, you know already several, so you are exactly in between the language and the grammar, which is an abstraction of the language. Huh? It's a chicken and egg. Is the grammar first or is the language first? Can you answer that, Padmini?
I think that might be outside my realm. But
I answer for you. I claim that language is first. Grammar is only an abstraction of it. When I see teachers in the school which refer hardly to the grammar until finally people are afraid of their own language. No, grammar is there. No, grammar is just a representation. It's just a way to abstract a bit. And of course, you've got exceptions to remember your grammar. So the idea is to find a useful way to abstract, and of course, there will be exceptions and so on. In science, it's the same. What I want to say is AI needed those representations. And it was very exciting because the idea was to transfer all these representations to the machines, which is not so difficult. We had technical ways to do it. I will not enter into those details. They are rather technical, but AI was that, allowing to put forward some local agent able to communicate locally, because of course it's always in a small group that you can communicate, and for that using some abstraction, like for example grammar for language. And it was interesting because it reached some success during years and years. There were many critics about, for example, of course, can I do an artifact like that without sufficient way of communication? Because people were not crazy. They knew that intelligence is not in the brain, it is also in the body. So there was a phenomenological critique of it. And also many reflections about mind philosophy. So it was very exciting. Something, and it's the main thing you refer in your book, came quite suddenly. It's a resurgence of another way of achieving artificial intelligence, which came from those neural networks you mentioned. And the idea, you'll see, it's very important to understand that, because for me, it's the basis of everything. you will understand perfectly, is, of course, what if you change those abstractions, let's say grammar, into the extension of all the examples you've got? But the first time people had the opportunity to do that. Tools were there now, for some reasons, enabling us to say, wow, what if we forget for a moment our representation on only using massive example, but grounded examples, for example, of text, those that are used to models. So you try now, because maintaining those abstractions are difficult, they are problematic, because they rely, as we understood, on communities, but communities have difficulties to discuss with them. It's also the human culture that you know. So what if we could cancel those abstractions and use only massive examples? And that's the very new approach of AI. And so the idea is very different, and it raises questions which are very different. For example, with your new ways of predicting text, like ChatGPT. ChatGPT, you know that, is using all, of course it needs many references, and then it can predict, let's say, a kind of imitation of those massive representations. But the problem is that we haven't got, what? Abstraction to compare, so we haven't got knowledge. Because what is knowledge? Knowledge is exactly the maintenance of our abstraction in between our grounded realities. So with that kind of AI, no more knowledge. Knowledge is exactly in the middle of those things. No more knowledge. So, for example, the AI, Apu is put in forward, and all the subjects he put in his book are exactly the controversy, which are very important now, and that's why it's very important to read that book. Now, what if we don't develop knowledge? We can predict things, very important, very interesting things, like, oh, okay, man, you have a disease, and we are sure, because we compare many things, so we are sure you have a disease. Okay, I have a disease, but what about oncology? Does it help too, if my disease is cancer, for example, how that prediction is serving the knowledge about oncology? And the answer is now, we don't know. There is no explanation for the prediction, and nothing, because we don't maintain those abstractions. And I think that most of the controversies, and they are very important controversies, and it's very important to involve many people. That's the inclusion need for AI, the popularization made by this book. It's very important to discuss that, because those discussions are quite new. I mean, if I think about, for example, science never did that. Science always needed some theories to interact with. So that story of that kind of new AI coming from, let's say, a branch that is now very powerful, and it's that AI only now which is on the top of our discussion. And so it's very important to discuss that, and it's very important that Apu was courageous enough to write this book, and that's the introduction. So it's very important, and we are in a very particular way. Just to finish, I think quite soon that AI will collapse.
Controversial.
No, for simple reasons. That if you think about it, it will collapse, but it's not a problem. It will renew. But you know, it's like my image I had just. It's like you know, now the US they have got many problems with petroleum and so on, and they discover schist petroleum. You know, you can find petrol and oil in some very bubbles in the earth. So now the USA have got petrol somehow. But it's the last. I mean, it's the last. After that, there will not be. So, of course, if you consider the vast amount of data that are now available, you can exploit it. Like, of course, schist oil. You can do things. But after a moment, the problem will be, what about the knowledge? What about the cultural, scientific aspect of maintaining knowledge, and we cannot live without, at least we don't know, it never happened to us to live without developing what we call knowledge, that's to say abstraction of things.
Thank you. So coming to Apupen, I wanted to ask you, kind of based off actually some of the things that Francis has said, that so much of thinking around AI and how we conceive of AI and how AI is developed is the idea of abstraction, representation, and the black box. So how did you go about drawing that? You know, something like an LLM, something that is like at a very, very large scale. How did you manage to kind of distill that in a way that it would fit into a panel or a page?
Yeah, it looks really boring if you like look at those things that they have, the machines, and it's just endless. But what was interesting is to visualize a lot of the technical explanation that was going on. So there are pages and pages of technical stuff that is explaining how AI works and how it's trained and things like that, for which there aren't really any visual like equivalent. You have to like imagine in that cyberspace, or like you have to zoom in and go in there, and so it almost became a fantasy space. Of course, I have to like understand what's happening and have a clear idea of what the reader will take from it.
Sure.
But beyond that, it's just up for imagination, and I think that part worked very well because Laurent is now using that in his like teaching modules. So he says people get it a lot better. So for better or worse, like people like comics because it's simplifying stuff and like making it less boring or something. And it's also because we don't want to take in too much information. So it's, I hope we conveyed like the essentials and like enough information. I hope we didn't dumb it down like that. But I had fun with that visualization thing because it's pretty new, it's random, and if it works, it works. So I think it worked. But yeah.
Did you look for any other depictions of AI in art or in cinema?
Yeah, I don't want to like go by that because there's already like that image of AI.
Sure.
I think like when I think of AI, I kind of go very Hollywood on it. I think of the robot in iRobot has that face. HAL is the voice and the eye, which is pretty much like what we've used in the thing. So something more abstract is what I wanted to go for,
Sure.
not a face as such. So we use that kind of like a single eye sort of thing with IDA also. So I think that also connects with people's general idea of AI. It's something, it's like this light or eye or something like that. I wanted to keep it there because otherwise we are going too close to the references that are already playing in your head, and that will have a lot of bias. You'll have the Hollywood stories, and then most of the time people want to know about what happens after AGI, and like you're already thinking in that realm. We wanted to, after studying it, I realized we're far from it. So I wanted to like tone it down back and talk about something where AGI is much further ahead, and maybe we don't even get there with this model of teaching AI more and more stuff. Maybe there has to be some different way of like going there, I thought. And that's what the impression I got, because we are not getting the AI to like have knowledge like he said, like the intuition or like things like that are kind of missing. It's only reacting to stuff it's been trained on. So you can train it on more and more stuff, and it'll get better at those actions, what it has to do. But what about like the next level of intelligence? From our discussions, it seemed like quite far and very much in the fictional world. But invariably, I feel people are reacting to the idea of AI we have from science fiction and Hollywood in particular. So we're thinking of like AI like that. People are talking about AI girlfriends and like terraforming Mars and things like that. So I think we're thinking there. So consciously like try to like tone it down a little. It's still clunky. It doesn't know like what it's doing. It's like lying, like I said. Like it doesn't know, like it'll create a very nice, we have to try so many times for these images and stuff. And I don't know how these AI artists survive. I mean, it's much more easier to just draw it at this stage. unless you're, but it might create something that looks aesthetic or nice once, and the next prompt might be something absolutely disastrous. So it's not going by any like idea like that. It's just like randomly throwing things. You happen to like something, and then you don't. So it doesn't know that part of it. So it's like Laura says, it's a statistical model. So don't ask it to tell you your future and stuff like that, because it's to predict the next word or the next number or the next pixel in that case. So I think we should see it for what it is first before we assess it and start getting afraid of it or all this stuff.
So I think, Francis, when you were talking about the kind of historical trajectory of how we've come to this moment with AI, obviously there has, as you were describing, been this split between thinking of AI as how can technology emulate consciousness, as opposed to what we're seeing now, and I think that's kind of where the fear comes from, which is AI purporting to be human, right, or seeming human, and that seems to be kind of the heart of conversations about, say, AI art, right? So I think I was kind of wondering, how does this, the hallucinations, say, that AI encounters or experiences, how does that kind of feed into a larger conversation that we currently have around, say, misinformation and representation? We just had elections, and apparently there was a lot of anxiety about how deep fakes would be used in the election, but apparently it was not as pernicious as one would have imagined. So I think something that people are probably also doing is that they are being able to understand an AI image when they see it, right? Like it's lit a certain way, it's it's created a certain way. It has a certain kind of visual vocabulary that people can say, oh, I think that's an AI image, right? So I'd just be interested to know both of your opinions on this kind of dissembling that AI might be doing, like this trying to appear to be human when it is not, and kind of how that might shape the development of AI as we go forward. And that's where obviously the money is as well, right? How well it emulates.
It'll get better. It's the more training, it'll get better. Like, for example, the images I showed, we had trained it on 600 images, I said. If we had 6,000 or 60,000, it'd probably draw just like me. At least what we have drawn there. It would draw much closer. So it's on the amount of training we have, and that's happening as we speak. So on different fronts, you can ask it to write like Victor Hugo, and it'll write. But if you ask it to write like Zakaria, it may not yet, because it's not been trained on Zakaria's stories yet. So, but that's happening parallelly.
But then, Francis, do you think it's possible for AI to develop its own style?
Its own what style or?
Style. So at the moment you have to always, in a prompt say,
so many
in
questions.
The style of...
I write.
You can answer anyone.
Okay, no. Okay. So first, let's say during 60 years, AI existed, developed many things, and people were not very interested on it. Curiously, it was under the radar, even if, again, many very interesting questions were asked. It was a mix of philosophical questions, of technical questions, social questions. But suddenly, of course, because of maybe an hope of some economic raising, that is the subject of your book, AI becomes, and in some way it's very interesting because it has been popularized in movies and things like that, but it appears a little bit in the front of the media. We are surrounded by AI, people are talking about it, and we are a little late to think AI, and also, as I mentioned, we are in a particular point of the AI development which is particularly difficult to think. Just a few things. What we are trying to do now, which is a trial, a very interesting one, is to remember for the lack of knowledge, that could be to work on explainability of what AI is putting forward. If we could explain, which was the case before, every AI system was able to explain natively his behavior, because it was always relying on theories, on something we could check. But now explainability is a research field. If we could force AI system not only to say they are AI, the label, but also to explain how they produce their result, which is a very difficult problem, because of, and it's well exposed in the books, because of the way those systems are trained. It's very difficult to trace the way they function. But of course there is an effort now here, because it's a key point. If we could explain those AI systems, I mean, if they could explain what they produce in some way, it would be a very good solution. Because now the claim is that there is no need for knowledge, including applied knowledge, for training the models. The claim is you have only to be a good statistician, knowing exactly what is well described in the book, to train and to build an AI, which is partly false. The way you train the AI, and you mentioned in your book the way you change the prompts description, is always very intuitive. And more than that, I've got many PhD students, for example, that are developing AI systems, and part of their time is to tune their systems, and they will never say that the system is not agnostic. That would say is not only relying on statistics, but in fact they tune the system to allow it to produce good results. And that tuning, nobody knows exactly what it is. What is tuning those systems? Because we cannot explain in terms of theories, but it is tuning. It's like so you train, it fails, so you change something, you adapt it. ChatGPT, for example, even if it's a black box, is not only a pure system of AI training. It involves many different things and many manual things, as we know now, for correcting some bias, to make it more ethical and things like that. So the agnosticity of, I don't know if the words exist, of the current AI is a trap. So those are the question. And you mentioned again, two things. The singularity, because it's over your question, the singularity theory saying, which is quite interesting. It's an old theory, but if you put it in simple ways, it's quite easy to imagine what it is. The fact is that now there are many artificial systems, AI systems. They are hyper-connected, they share data, and they're able to learn from data, so in some way they're able to learn from each other. And if you just consider, let's say, the fourth report, you'll see that humans are doing their things, but now there are more and more artificial systems, again, interconnected learning, so they've got naturally the power of learning more than humans. That's the singularity theory. So it's a thing that deserves to be discussed. I don't trust it is. We are about to, because there are forecasts. For example, Ray Kurzweil says within 20 years the computers will have the power. I don't trust that kind of prediction for many reasons. But and maybe one of the reasons, and the last talk, you mentioned consciousness. And consciousness is very important. And if I can say, there is a rule in the racket, I don't know, if you play tennis, which is enormous. During all those stories, consciousness is completely absent. I mean, conscience, which is a phenomenon, a very important phenomenon, which has been studied, which is still studied. It has been, I think, very well studied by phenomenologists, for example, Husserl and Heidegger and many phenomenologists. They were trying to renew completely science centered on consciousness, which is something very easy to do, but easy to do at the beginning. The conscience is first, but it is a reconstruction of many knowledge we have. But that question of conscience is totally absent of the actual power of AI. And that makes something, that makes an enormous deficit of credibility. AI is imitating, is doing many interesting things. It's interesting as far as we are interested and we are able to question it. But apart from it, it's not so interesting. And the question of consciousness is still totally open. We have I've tried, there are researchers working on it, but it's something very difficult, and for the moment, AI is zero, according to consciousness, which is a central phenomenon. The very fact, I feel like being myself for a certain, and if I do that, I feel both the end of Apu, but also my end with that. That's a phenomenological way of thinking. We are very far away from that in AI, and that's an incredible deficit, poverty of AI.
Just adding to the first part, I think the big boom or the big change with ChatGPT is that something that was in the realm of a lab or just with scientists suddenly became everybody's tool. And I don't know, like there are many aspects to it, I'm sure, but I can see it as a pure strategy of like how to make AI more friendly for a business. Like if I'm doing an ad for a tech company or something, the first thing I'll tackle is how it is perceived. And AI had a sort of scary image before. How do you break that scary image and make it a friendly thing for everybody to like talk about? And it's actually happened, like friends have come and told me that their idea of AI has changed over the last year or so because they are using it at home. And it's like fun things to use, and you know, it's just like they play with it and stuff. So what the part of AI that we are seeing, or the part of AI that we are encouraged to use, is only like this very user-friendly, like top end of it, and we're not seeing what's behind or what's under it. We're just happy getting that much of it, and we feel like we know AI. And it has actually changed the perception of AI in like around a lot. So also with energy, like suddenly everyone's using ChatGPT, which has a processor and a server sitting somewhere and like, you know, churning it out. So the point where it just became like widely used, the energy consumption also like, you know, went super high. And that's some of the things that we don't really like go into and talk about. Because I think like I wanted more on the environment aspect in the book really, but we had to sort of limit it because the number of pages were like kind of set in the beginning itself. In France, we have to like order paper before. So if you want like add pages, then it's like, oh, then the number of copies will be cut down and all. Like, oh, no. So we went with it. I think it's only meant to be the starting point. Like people who want to like research more on any part of it can take it further, and you'll find more about it. But this energy consumption part is really, it's really not like safe.
Yeah, I think one prompt is 5 liters of water. Like one ChatGPT prompt.
Yeah, so
yeah.
There are many ways of equating it like that. I don't know if it's still hard-hitting enough.
Yeah.
But I was looking for something like that, unique for the book.
Right.
I couldn't like come up with anything for the book itself. I'm reading all these kind of
Yeah, but I feel like those investigations only happen after the book, like because people have become a little more concerned about the environmental impact. So yeah. Okay, one last question before we open it up to the audience, which is that would you feel more comfortable if AI art was not called AI art, but say I don't know, if it was labeled as an AI technician, or because obviously it's not an artist who, you know, has a life of perception and smoking, drinking, whatever, you know, artistic kind of things that make kind of artists. So yeah, because I mean, there's no imagination, right? So what is it?
Yeah, this art question is like very dicey, like, you know.
You wrote a whole book about it, so you should be able to answer.
No, I'm saying in general, like we watch some movies and we say like we criticize it thinking it's art, but that movie had nothing to do with art. It was like made, it was entertainment and commerce, and they did not say that they are making art, but we criticize it as though it had to like do some art. So I would look at AI art like that. It's like I said, it's cheaper and churns out stuff faster. So you need that mostly for commercial things. Like yeah, I think it goes in that realm, and something.
But there are people who are submitting AI art for, say, competitions.
Yes,
you know,
there are also people who are selling stuff to NFT and stuff. But like, you know, it's something that people do. Like, you know, it happens. But nobody. I don't hear many people talking about the joy of creating stuff or drawing stuff. Like, you know, for me, the main thing is like cracking the idea. Like that gives me a rush, and then it's about how you can realize it on the page, draw it or write it and realize it, and doing that is the task that you enjoy. Why would you want a machine to like take that? Like there was a comic recently which said, what is that? The AI will do my creative work so that I have more time to do my laundry and stuff like that. Like I'd rather let AI do the laundry and also I can do my creative work, right? Like so. I think it's a little funny in that sense. Coming to how it affects the art thing, I don't think personally, like in the comic scene in India especially, I don't think anybody's going to use this, because like if comics become that big in India that you need AI to like make comics, I'm happy. Like, you know, do it, use it, make more. But like since the scene is so small, like I survive on like other corporate assignments, doing like branding or like design for brands and stuff, logos and things like that. That can be handled much more easily and cheaper and faster, because clients always have deadlines and things like that. So that can be handled very well by AI, because the AI can be trained on 10,000 of the world's best like brand identity guidelines or something. And it will make something like that is slightly different and like going with all that stuff. So I think a lot of that immediate thing that I see of artists like suffering is this kind of thing. Like we rely on these things for money. And that's going to be taken away, and you know somebody will come up and say like, you know, brand identity for anybody for 5K, like, you know, give you the whole spiel and bullshit along with it. So I think that kind of scene is going to be affected. Yeah, it can write more bullshit than an NID person. So it's great.
Some NID people in the house, clearly. Okay, yes, we're opening up to questions. I think we're going to have a roving mic. There's somebody here in the middle.
Hi. Apupen, I always loved your art. I've been like a fan. I have one short question and two maybe slightly longer question. The first one is, you have a comic book coming, or like a graphic novel coming with Perumal Murugan. When is it going to be out, maybe translated in English? The second part is more on the explainability part. Artists also have take inspiration, whether it is a music artist, whether it is writers, whether it is movie, and there's a long history of that. And all of them cannot explain what they were inspired by. There is also rampant, for a lack of better word, copying, right, of maybe scenes, maybe from paintings into movies, and books into movies, and vice versa. So how is how do we reconcile maybe saying that AI should not do this when humans themselves are doing this? Because in some sense it is mimicking the behavior of humans. And the last question is, can you talk a little bit more about your process of drawing, especially the fact that you use certain motifs, or you use the choice of colors, which I've seen in all your web comics as well. So these are like maybe the three questions.
Easiest, I think.
Yeah, it's difficult to talk about AI now because I'm coming from 1950s Tamil Nadu. I've been on this book that we are working together. It's on Jellycutter. So thanks for bringing it up. I'll finish drawing by end of July, I hope. So we're looking at release later this year. So yeah, trying to recreate like 1950s Tamil Nadu, and there are very few photographs of like Jellycutter, how it was at that time. Sport has changed, like lots of laws, rules have come in, so we get pictures of the new stuff only, so I'm lost in imagining those kind of things. Second, about the art. Yes, I know this. We are influenced, I think, is still different from the way these things are being trained. So there is that gray line there about how much we get influenced and all that, but there is also some creative, some responsibility from the artists that we expect. I don't know, there are people using it, but you know, if we go into regulations and stuff, and if we look at like what it's been trained on, like when that Mid-Journey thing came out, you saw the names of the artists that it's being trained on, and they are like denying that it's been done like that till then. I don't think it's fair on the artists, because yes, I'm also influenced by a lot of artists, and comic artists also, but in the way I'm making the stuff, with my influences, of where I've lived and what I've seen and things like that, I think that is what brings the originality to it. So I just made a comic recently where this AI art machine is being trained, and it's being told that it's useless. It is good for nothing. It will never get his job and get married. It's poor at, like do something to like make your life worthwhile, because true art comes from pain and suffering, and this machine needs to like feel that. So I don't know, like you make your own answer from it, but like I think that space is open. But when there are regulations coming, like in the US, there were some places where you can't copyright AI art. So then you can't print it and publish it. The point comes when you're printing it and publishing and making money. Like I can use like R.K. Lakshman's like Common Man and like make a tribute to him and put it on my social media thing. But if I make that a book of like R.K. Lakshman tributes and make money on it, then it's not fair, right? So I think it's like sort of like that. The last question, what?
He was asking about your style and
style.
choices.
You know my style and color very well. What are you asking?
I think Francis wanted to add something.
Huh? This one. For this, it's more of for Dream Machine, it was more of a production thing. We had decided in the beginning only like a color book will be too expensive. So 2 color is what is preferred. And I had to fight about the blue a little bit, because the blue, what the publishers wanted was very much like a Facebook blue. And that already gives you this idea of like a large tech company kind of thing. And we are trying to say something very different. So I wanted to make it a lot more greener and like just down it a little bit on saturation and stuff. I think the Indian version has the color like a little more closer to what I wanted. The other one like somehow weird, we had a pattern shade and all, but it's somehow weird closer to like the Facebook kind of thing, which I don't like. It's like a very corporate like blue thing, So gray and 1 color is what I could use. Blue worked for a lot of things here. For example, in the Perumal book, I'm trying to do yellow because there's a lot of heat and it's like South India at that time, dust, things like that, and black and white, and that yellow goes very well for that. So,
Francis, you wanted to add something?
There is some red too in the cover.
yes, of course. For the Indian version, we had to put some red. In the French, they don't need it like it.
Yeah, just to add something. Of course, I cannot contradict Apu when he's talking about art and AI, but in many cases also AI play a very important role to enhance artistic creation. For example, I've been during years in Centre Pompidou in Paris, in the IRCAM, the center dedicated to contemporary music and dance, and I've got many examples. I could just give you, it comes to me, describing it, where AI and let's say computer science help to achieve very important things. For example, as soon as contemporary music is concerned, at a certain point, we were able to do artificial music with automatic music. I don't know how to call it. I don't remember. I'd say, music done by artifacts. And the question was, how can we do mixed music, that's to say with real musicians, but also producing music. And that's a particular time in the story of contemporary music where the question was that one. And it is very difficult to give the time, the mastering of the musical gesture time to the actual musicians. If I'm a violin player, I don't want a process, an algorithm process to play his music and constrains my time, my expressive time. But the way to constrain the artificial process and to link them to the, for example, to the gesture of that violin player is a very difficult, as you can imagine, it's a very difficult target. And it took many times to achieve it, at least 10 years, to, for example, a composer I know with Philippe Manori, and he explains very well the process, and it's very technical, and AI played a very important role. So in some case, you cannot only say that AI is reproducing without imagination. If it helps a process which is ambitious and very, like the one I described, very technical, AI can play a positive role. And just another thing, please, I wanted to, because you pronounced the word of regulation, which is quite important. And I wanted to mention something very special, is that regulation of AI is, of course, something new and very difficult, and you can regulate AI at many different levels. You can regulate an application, you can regulate a platform or something like that, and we know it's very difficult, and there is something unequal actually in the world, because there are concurrencies, we know very well. For example, the US have got their GAFA platforms, and Chinese have got their special, very government-controlled AI systems. European Union has got a description of law of concerning, for example, privacy, which is a very important point too. And European Union is producing text, but not enough tools to be used, to be compliant with those laws, to be able to make some regulatory of AI. So that question is incredibly sensitive now, and it's a global question, and there are many solutions and states fighting. And India has got a very strong position on it, very interesting one, saying we can make AI regulation as a kind of layer up to the India stack that you know, as far as it concerns the UPI and ADA, the systems you know very well. What if we could build on that? The architecture is named DEPA, Digital Empowerment and Protection Architecture, something that could be natively techno-legal, saying, offering, let's say, open source possibilities that allows private and public partners and users to build up, and it is mentioned in the book too, at a certain point in your scenarios at the end. And the idea is, what if that could be techno-legal, meaning the open source code that could be delivered is natively compliant to the law concerning privacy and so on, and that could be a very creative solution concerning AI regulation. India is now pushing it, and I was, for example, some weeks ago in United Nations, and it's incredible how many ambassadors from many countries, not only global south, but also north countries, are now interested by this solution. So those problems are on stage, are workable, and there are many solutions. And we discussed that with Apu, and I completely I was right with him. Of course, this could be a great solution for everywhere in the world, coming from India, but India has also, certainly, not to develop only at the state level vision of common goods, but also it has to be more culturally developed. We have probably to develop our commons and our digital commons at different level of the society. That's why it's so important to talk about AI and to develop our view on it, to experiment and to develop some commons. And government level is, of course, a very important one. It has not to be the only one, of course.
Thanks for that. Okay, we have a question. Oh, okay, quite a few. Okay. Can we take that?
Please go to mic.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
Thank you for the talk. My biggest concern with AI is how, when we integrate AI into the capitalist model as well as the surveillance state, existing biases again get multiplied and marginalized societies get further marginalized. So my question was on whether AI can be made inclusive for enabling marginalized societies, considering that the training that these models go through is based on, again, data that is coming from the West, for example. So how can this be done, considering that, again, AI is something that is very difficult to unblack box as well?
Yeah. AI in general, like theoretically, yes, it's very nice and all that, but it's who controls it also. So, like in the book, we kind of like hint on these things that it's a tool that can be used very effectively for more control, more surveillance, and something that can serve an authoritarian state if that is the angle it's taken in. So there are, like, your concerns are on, and I think we'll have to see that over some time. But I do believe that it's not going to be so smooth, and powers that are in charge are, connected to each other, and I think they will use it for their advantage, and a lot of people are going to get screwed.
Wow, very optimistic. But also, I think it's a question of kind of investment, right? Like, so say, for example, large language models are usually trained in India on high resource languages, which means Hindi, Bengali, kind of languages that are very commonly spoken, and low resource languages, tribal languages, etc. We don't have enough resources to train LLMs on, which means that we're creating a world which is already kind of structurally unfair from the very outset. So it is really largely dependent on how investment is used and how it is distributed in order to ensure that we have more quote-unquote indigenous computing, etc. So yeah, so the possibility is there. I mean, the possibility is not built into AI for that to be impossible, but it's the other factors that shape how AI is developed, kind of where it's pulling its resources from. Yeah. Lady in blue.
Yeah, hi. I am an educator, and thank you, Apu, for the book, because it's already informing my institution to look into the ethics of AI, and we are debating it every day on how teachers can bring in more ethicality into the classroom so that these thought processes are coming through to be able to discuss some of the concerns raised in the book. I mean, coming from the humanities space, it was my first entry into looking into how LLMs, even how I can understand them to be able to bring them. My question is, like, with learned deception already being researched with Cicero and, a lot of those models, those papers have come out. So learned deception is happening with AI. It has been able to cheat, lie, without being trained on. How do you think we should navigate this ethics space? And this question is for both of you.
No, because I'm not sure I completely understood, but my English is so poor, and I'm not sure I completely understood. First, the question, your remark on education, this I understood. It's very important that educators use AI, at least to criticize. So I think, of course, it's very important to use it, and I think that's the beginning of it. The second part, maybe
I think I understood your question as the fact that people are using AI to write essays, etc., and plagiarism, and detecting plagiarism.
We are also encouraging AI in the educator space.
Right. Okay. So that tension. Right.
But the question of ethics.
Yeah.
He also talked about how ethicality or even consciousness comes into play while the use of AI.
Sure.
And there are papers to prove learned deception has already happened. It's there.
Sure.
It's already come. So how do we navigate the space of ethics with learned deception?
I think we'll have to go with it for some time. I think that's what I think it feeds into this world of like the comfortable social media bubble kind of thing. So when Laura was talking to me about the training of AI, there is a very high weightage for it to please you. So that is where a lot of the lying thing comes in, because the priority seems to be higher to please you and engage you, because and that I see as like a very corporate kind of way of like getting
It's a consumer product.
yeah friendly with you. You know, I don't think it's meant for the like for this. You'll have to create a separate unit or a separate like AI model for just the teaching or something, which explicitly like denies a lot of the internet stuff that it learns, because a lot of stuff comes from there because it's been trained on the entire internet. So that means like a lot of lies and a lot of propaganda have also gone into the training. So if you ask like something slightly different, then it has some info of like some lie or something that seems to serve your question better or please you better. So it seems to like give all kinds of things. I think like it's very risky to like put it straight out there for education as such. I think it has to be like a separate model that is meant for that. I'm not the expert on how to like do that, but like I think it's we are already pushing it into many places where it's not equipped to do anything. People are asking like what my future will be like.
It's an astrologer rather than. Although I asked ChatGPT who I was, like who is Padmini Remare, and it gave me 7 very pleasing scenarios of a very successful academic career where I've published books that I've never written.
Oh.
So yeah, it was quite fantastic and inspirational. Yes, okay. Can we have somebody from this side, please? Okay, somebody at the back. Okay, sure. Yeah.
There was this legal case in the US where the lawyer had used some ChatGPT thing, and he cited a case and all in court. And then after some time he got pulled up and which case was? Like, there is no case. They just made it up to police or suit the situation and win the case. So teachers should go back and like,
We are fighting a very tough battle.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, my question is to you, Mr. Russo, since you're the AI expert. A small introduction about myself. I work as a content marketing manager for a B2B firm that basically deals with AI ML induction and integration for enterprises, manufacturing companies and whatever. So whenever I'm faced with a question as to what my idea of AI is, not from Bangalore, but whenever I'm back home with relatives, circle of friends. So to give you some context before I ask my question, I'm going to share 3 news bites just so that you get a better understanding of what I'm asking, right? The first news bite is from 7 to 8 months ago. This is the time when the United States and China are between one of the worst tariff wars that has ever been witnessed, right? And in between the tariff war, we hear news of Biden and Xi Jinping coming together to sign a treaty abolishing missile, when you decide to press that button and the missile goes out, that decision making should not be AI inducted, right? This is Biden and Xi Jinping we're talking about, right? And if you know the global order, they're not the best of friends right now, right? This is the first news order, right? So AI is something that is getting these 2 guys on the table. Second news bite is maybe I think a month and a half old, which is from Meta, the senior most VP who is the head of artificial intelligence and machine learning said that AI pretty much doesn't have much of a future. It's going to implode, not explode, implode very soon, right? The head of Meta. The third news bite is from 2 to 3 days ago, right? It's coming from the porn industry, which has been one of the earliest inductors of AI, even other technologies as well, VR and all. It didn't work that well, but whatever. They're toying with the idea of putting AI-based content, and they're basically toying with the idea of how ethical it is, whether they should have a tag, just like how we mentioned, that this is the AI created, or whether they should just mix it up with the rest of their content, right? So there is an ethical sort of gap there. Now, looking at these 3 scenarios, right, my question is, how do we, to a common man, not the techie crowd in Bangalore or Hyderabad, but how do you explain to a common man, and I rather, since I'm asking this to Mr. Russo, I would rather try to expand the horizon of the question. How do I explain this to someone who is a part of the umbrella protests happening under Macron a year ago? How do I explain it to someone like that as to what should be the perception of AI? Not someone who's roaming on the streets of Champs-Élysées, shopping for the best of brands. How do I explain it to the Bangladeshi restaurant owner in Gare du Nord, right? As to what would be the perception of AI, what should be the perception of AI, right? Yeah, just 2 more seconds. I know it's gone for a bit long, right? And the reason why I ask this question is there a different narrative other than a dystopian wasteland of a surveillance state, or AI ending up cleaning our gutters and basically doing the menial jobs? Is there a center line somewhere in between where we can sort of define this perception? And why I ask this question is, instinctively humans have been known, just 20 more seconds, instinctively humans have been known to fear what they don't understand. When the railway tracks were first being laid from Thane to Bombay, a lot of the farmlands nearby thought that the Britishers are putting these up to hang people. So to define this perception is very important. I would like to know your thoughts. Thank you so much for giving me the time to ask this long question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your question. Well, what we understood by those exchanges is that, yeah, we are now in a strange period where, capitalism is running bad stuff. So, of course, like if we follow the book, would rather to use AI for, and it's very important for global challenges which are there, and it will be very interesting to of course, to mobilize AI for those subjects. And it's a pity that for the moment there are still some, let's say, very commercial trust around those subjects, but it's the beginning of it. And of course, the American position is very special because they invented that, the oil, the data, big data oil, that model in some way. And that model was very interesting because it allowed us to understand, to use many things. We cannot say American did, no, they introduced that models of using data. That's very clever, that's very interesting. And again, if I've got a smartphone, it's thanks to Apple. But, of course, now we are in that period where at every level of understanding of organizational power, we have to think about the best thing to do. So I mentioned the Indian government working with private sectors on DPI so digital public infrastructure, as a way to protect and to change a bit the balance, because we cannot leave the data go to, for example, the states for free, and that's not fair. But at every level, we have to work. And I insist on the fact that even if you are, for example, mostly if you are a teacher with some student, but at that level you have to introduce AI to think about it. We need to think and to experiment at many levels. You are a market developer, so use ChatGPT or tools like that and evaluate and try to consider all that. So we need experimentation around that.
Okay, do we have time for one more question, or? Okay, somebody at the back.
Hi, good evening. Quick question. What are the kind of jobs that are in the sidelines which can become mainstream where there's likely to be a lot of money? What are the kind of jobs that are in the sidelines which can potentially make a lot of money in the years to come using AI?
Do you think Apupen can answer that question?
Exactly why I'm asking him that.
Go for it. I don't know how this became a career counseling session. But based in AI, is that? Yeah, of course. Right. Okay.
I mean, there are a lot of business people in Bangalore who you can ask this to. I'm on the, but I can tell you from the advertising side, a lot of people when I was in advertising, we used to go and look through these award-winning books of ads whenever we get any brief, and we flip through it and then find something that we can copy and make into the ad for the brand. AI can do that much better, and it can go through tons of that material. So that kind of stuff I know, but I don't know, otherwise, give some suggestions. I'm sure there are.
Ethics. I mean, ethics and regulation is going to be, is where the money is, so, yeah.
Education,
but you do have to, I mean, it's not, I don't think there's a quick fix.
There's a teacher here who just mentioned it, so,
yeah.
lots of, see, definitely a lot of jobs are on the anvil, and earlier they said it's going to be manual jobs and things like that. But now it's pretty clear it's not there. It's a lot more. So I think, because I studied economics and stuff, I believe that wherever you can cut corners, these businesses will cut corners. So whatever it can do, so basically you should be the boss who controls the setup and fires people, and then you can make more money on it. But it doesn't really matter which business is such, I think you should be the guy in control and not the guy who's going to get fired. So that's what you should look out for. That's the best I can.
So basically MBA at the end of the day. Nothing new. Francis, you wanted to add something?
Yeah. I told you at the beginning that I had another secret reason for willing to be here. It's because when I read the Apu book, I thought that there is something to do, which is the next book for Apu. And there is something incredible to do. What has been done is incredible, because I told that everything, every subject, every actual controversy is on that book. So the work is fantastic. But as I told you, there is something very interesting now, and it is very Indian, and it is that story of digital public infrastructure for regulation. It's very singular, and we've got here in India, and I work for that think tank, many people, but there is a think tank managed by, let's say, a kind of guru, an Indian guru who is absolutely fantastic, very attractive, and he's got, he's Sharad Sharma, you know him, and Sharad Sharma has incredible knowledge of that. He's the person in the world. He is, by the way, a member of the United Nations board for AI regulation, the only Indian one. He's got all the knowledge of that, and it could be a fantastic next book to popularize, to develop that idea of regulation by different digital commons, and particularly digital public infrastructure. With Sharad, you could write the next book, and it will be again a fantastic book on AI and its regulation. So I could introduce you. That's also where I'm here.
What about government control on it?
That could be the controversy you put in your books.
You think we can talk about it with Sharad?
No, it's very important to discuss that. It is part of the natural controversial of that approach, and you could develop scenarios and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's an important question to raise.
Cool.
But that idea, if you discuss with Sharad, he will demonstrate that normally the effort that has been done in the India stack, for example, is to really separate the possibilities of government intrusion into that. So it's a subject, but it's a very interesting subject now for India, and it could be, really a bomb for the rest of the world, because again, something very, not a bomb, maybe it's not a good word. But
no, that's a good word. That's a good word.
Right word to use.
No, it will be something very, very actual and very interesting on that subject.
Got it. Yeah,
Right,
thank
you heard
you
it
very
here
much.
first. Okay, so if the books have arrived, Apu Pen will be signing and selling books. Hopefully, do we know whether the books have arrived? Yes. Okay. After this, so please do buy the book and learn everything about AI that you were afraid to ask. Thank you very much, and thank you, Apu Pen and Francis.
Thank you, Padmini. Thank you, Francis.